At 25 years old, I came to this big city I longed for, Miami, alone, despite my family's disapproval. The city is brightly lit under the night sky, and the tall buildings and flowing vehicles seem to tell me that this is a place full of opportunities. I once thought this would be a stage where I could strive day by day, but soon I realized that while there are many wealthy people here, many are just as lost as I am, struggling desperately for a meal. Coming from the countryside, I feel both excited and unfamiliar with this bustling city. Not long after arriving in the city, I almost spent all the more than 1,000 yuan I brought, and finding a place to stay became a huge problem. Most cheap rental houses are not in good condition, with damp walls, old furniture, and some places are even too noisy to rest at night. The slightly better accommodations have rents that are dauntingly high. Sitting on a bench by the street, I watch the hurried pedestrians and flowing traffic. The night envelops me, and I feel a bit desolate and lonely. The confidence and expectations I once had have all shattered at this moment. I began to doubt myself, wondering if I was really suited to be in such a place. The dream in my heart seems to be drifting further away. Back in my hometown, at least I had a warm home and the care of my parents, but here I only feel loneliness and desolation. I touched my bag and took out the only remaining few dozen yuan, enough to stay in a very cheap hostel for a few nights. Every night, listening to the various noises coming from the neighboring room, I would tightly hug myself, telling myself that this would all pass. I just need to hold on a little longer. Online, I found information about shared rentals, so I began to search for shared rental information, calling and inquiring repeatedly, and looking at places. Each time I went with anticipation and nervousness. Sometimes the places I saw were not ideal, but there wasn't much room for choice. Just when I was about to despair, I met a girl by chance in a hotel. We chatted while waiting for the front desk to check us in. When she learned that I was looking for a job, her eyes lit up, and she told me that they were looking for a front desk staff at their hotel. She was the manager of the hotel. Although the job didn't pay much, it provided accommodation. This was simply great news for me. I excitedly exchanged contact information with the girl and agreed to go for an interview the next day. The interview went smoothly. Perhaps it was because they saw I really needed the job, or maybe I was indeed quite suitable. In less than half an hour, I got the job. I was overwhelmed with gratitude, thanking that girl and also myself for not giving up easily. Wearing the hotel uniform for the first time and standing at the front desk, I felt an unprecedented confidence. This city may truly be full of opportunities, as long as I bravely seek and seize them. Whenever a guest comes in, I greet them with a smile because I know that every smile is my gratitude to this city and my encouragement to myself. Working at the hotel has shown me a different side of this city. Of course, everyone has the right to choose their own life, and I never judge them, but deep down, I felt a bit shocked by such phenomena. One time, a young girl walked into the hotel, her face showing no expression, her eyes revealing a sense of emptiness. She was accompanied by a man who looked much older than her. I could tell that the man didn't really care for her. He merely saw her as a tool to satisfy his own desires. The girl's eyes showed a plea, as if hoping I could help her. But I was powerless, only able to do my job well, and silently pray that she could have a better life. At night, I lay in bed, reflecting on all the experiences this city has brought me. I am grateful for the job opportunity it gave me, but at the same time, I am also shocked by it. This city is truly a place full of opportunities, but it is also a place full of temptations and challenges. Here, I have learned a lot, not only work experience, but also how to face this complex society, how to protect myself, and how to uphold my bottom line. Every experience has made me more firmly believe that I can survive here and realize my dreams. Things did not go smoothly. One day, when I went to work, the manager told me that due to poor hotel performance, I needed to be laid off. That sense of loss and helplessness surged immediately. The pace of this city is really fast. Just when I thought I had found a bit of stability, I was pushed back to square one. Standing at the hotel entrance with my luggage, I thought about the uncertainty of the future and couldn't help but tear up. At that moment, my colleague Xiaoling came over and told me that she had a friend named Xiaowen, who was looking for someone to share her apartment, and she thought it was a good opportunity. At least this way you have a place to stay and can stabilize first, Xiaoling comforted me. Feeling uncertain, I still decided to meet Xiaowen. Following the address Xiaoling gave me, I arrived in front of a moderately aged residential building. I knocked on the door, and it slowly opened. Xiaowen was a short-haired girl who looked about my age. She smiled slightly, and that smile seemed very friendly. "You must be the one Xiaoling introduced," she asked. I nodded and briefly introduced my situation. When Xiaowen showed me her place, I was indeed taken aback. The room was spacious and bright, with modern decor that complemented the tall buildings of this city. Sunlight streamed through the large windows onto the floor, giving a sense of home. Such a house would definitely not be cheap in this city. I tentatively asked Xiaowen, how much does such a place cost per month? Xiaowen paused, gently pressed her lips together, and said, "Actually, if you are willing to share with me, it could be free or just a monthly fee." I widened my eyes, hardly believing my ears. Free? How is that possible? This is a prime location. Xiaowen took a deep breath and slowly said, "Actually, when I rented this place, the landlord gave me a condition, which is also the condition he gives to all tenants." I looked at her in confusion, not knowing what she would say next. A hint of disgust flashed in Xiaowen's eyes. "My landlord is a demolition second generation. He doesn't care about the rent. But he has a quirk. He only likes to rent to young and beautiful girls. The condition is..." Xiaowen's mouth twisted a bit, clearly not liking to say the next part, "You must sleep with him 20 times a month." I stared at Xiaowen in shock, my heart racing, almost unable to believe it. "You? How could you agree to such a condition?" Xiaowen smiled bitterly. I was also forced at that time. The pressure of life in this city is really great. But I really can't stand the frequency of the landlord. That's why I want to find someone to share the rent. If there are 2 people, we can share the sleeping times. I sat there, feeling lost. The pressure of life, dissatisfaction with my boyfriend, helplessness about myself. All the emotions surged in that moment. Xiaowen looked at me a bit nervously, seemingly waiting for my answer. "You know, Xiaowen," I said softly, "before I left my hometown, I had a boyfriend. But he was always like that, with no ambition, living a day-to-day life, never worrying about our future. His attitude disappointed me." Xiaowen seemed not to expect me to say this. She blinked, unsure how to respond. I continued, "It was he who made me feel that if I didn't venture out on my own, I might never see the outside world. It was also because of him that I decided to come to this city, wanting to find a future of my own. Xiaowen listened, a hint of sympathy flashing in her eyes. So you mean? I sighed. I don't want to lose myself again in this city and become their pawn. But I also understand that alone, it might really be hard to survive here. If this is the only way out, then I can consider it. Xiaowen looked at me deeply, as if trying to see through my thoughts. She gently said, "This decision is not easy, I know. But I hope you can think it through and not regret it for a lifetime because of a moment's impulse." I nodded. "I will. Thank you." When I decided to share the rent with Xiaowen, she showed a slight relaxed smile. But my stay depended on the landlord's intentions, so I put down my luggage and went with Xiaowen to meet the landlord. He was a man in his 30s, refined and stylish, dressed in a dark suit, looking very energetic. His gaze was sharp but concealed a hint of indescribable cunning. I felt a bit anxious, not knowing how he would evaluate me. When Xiaowen and I walked into the landlord's place, his gaze immediately locked onto me. I could feel the curiosity and satisfaction in his eyes. Although I tried to remain calm, facing his gaze, I couldn't help but shyly lower my head. "Oh, is this the new roommate you mentioned?" The landlord looked at me, then glanced at Xiaowen, smiling. "Indeed a great beauty." I frowned slightly, feeling a bit displeased. But considering the pressure of life and my current situation, I tried to smile and responded, "Yes, I'm here to look at the place." The landlord seemed even more interested in me. He looked me up and down, his eyes revealing unreserved admiration. "Xiaowen is right. You are indeed charming. And your figure is nice." I felt a bit awkward but tried to stay composed, saying, "Thank you for the compliment. We are here to discuss the rental." Xiaowen looked at me, seemingly comforting me. She turned to the landlord and said, "I think she is very suitable. What do you think?" The landlord smiled, revealing a few white teeth. "Since you say so, then I certainly have no problem." He looked at me again, his eyes revealing an indescribable meaning. "I hope we can cooperate happily." I took a deep breath, feeling like I was being pushed to the edge of a pit, but I also knew this was a choice I had to make for my life. On the night of my move-in, Xiaowen told me that the landlord wanted to see me that night and asked me to dress nicely. Although I was already mentally prepared, when the moment really came, my heart was still racing. That evening, I tidied my hair, changed into a simple nightgown, trying to make myself look plain and unpretentious. The room's lighting was slightly dim, gently spilling onto the bed. When I walked into the landlord's room, he was already lying on the bed, half leaning on the pillow, his eyes fixed on me. There was a hint of expectation and admiration in his gaze, and I could clearly feel his infatuation with me. I tried to stabilize my emotions, gently walked to the edge of the bed and sat down. His hand reached out, gently stroking my hair, and that touch made me tremble. My heart raced and I shyly lowered my head. He smiled slightly, placing his hand on my waist, gently pulling me closer. I didn't think highly of his way of compensating for rent with sleeping together, but I had to admit that his dominance had a charm unique to mature men. In that moment, I suddenly realized that the intimate contact with him actually made me feel a kind of excitement I had never experienced before. He whispered in my ear, "You are really beautiful." I felt my cheeks heat up, not knowing how to respond. His lips gently brushed against my ear, his warm breath making me a bit dizzy. He wasn't in a hurry, slowly unbuttoning my clothes, gently removing my modesty. Compared to my boyfriend back in my hometown, the landlord indeed brought me a different feeling. He knew how to appreciate a woman and how to make a woman feel happy. I couldn't help but admit that my contact with him actually brought me some joy. That night, we didn't say much. We just enjoyed our unique time together under the light. Living in this bustling city, I gradually adapted to the intimate relationship with the landlord and found a job selling women's clothing. Every day, I feel like I'm traversing through the colorful urban jungle, striving to find my direction and value. Whenever I return home from work, the landlord always waits for me in the living room, concernedly asking, "How was your day?" Even when I sometimes respond less enthusiastically due to work pressure, he always offers me enough understanding and encouragement. Time flies. While I work hard, I also notice that the landlord's feelings for me are growing deeper. Sometimes he buys snacks I like and leaves them in my room, or takes me out for a big meal and shopping on weekends. One night, we were sitting on the balcony, drinking red wine and admiring the dazzling city night view. The landlord suddenly turned to me, looking serious. "I want to tell you something." I put down my wine glass and looked at him. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "Actually, over this period, I've increasingly realized that my feelings for you are more than just simple affection. I truly cherish every moment spent with you. So, I want to ask you, will you marry me?" I was caught off guard by his sudden proposal, my heart racing. Although I didn't know what kind of person the landlord was, during our time together, I felt he was genuinely good to me. But I still hesitated because everything was happening too fast. I gently leaned my head on his shoulder. "I need time to think." He hugged me. "It's okay, I can wait." Just as my feelings for the landlord were deepening, one night, while I was looking at my phone in my room, a call from my hometown broke the tranquility. The phone rang, and when I answered, the name on the screen made my heart race. It was my boyfriend from my hometown. "Hello, where are you?" His voice sounded a bit anxious. "I'm at home, what's wrong?" I tried to stay calm, not letting my emotions get the better of me. "You haven't called me in so long, what's going on?" His tone was clearly accusatory. "I'm working, you know my life is busy right now." He suddenly sneered. "Oh, busy? Are you looking for some rich man over there?" I was angered by his words. "How can you say that about me?" He disdainfully said, "Do you think I don't know who you're living with over there? I've seen through women like you long ago." I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. "We've moved on. You have no right to criticize me." He snorted coldly. "I just called to tell you that a woman like you will never find true happiness." After hanging up, I sat on the bed, angry and sad, tears welling up in my eyes. I realized that cutting ties with my boyfriend from my hometown was the decision I needed to make. The landlord walked in, seeing me with tearful eyes, and hugged me with concern. "What's wrong?" I sobbed and told him about the phone call, then took a deep breath and looked at him decisively. "I've made up my mind. I want to marry you." A glimmer of surprise flashed in the landlord's eyes. "Really?" I nodded. "Really." He happily kissed my forehead. "Thank you. I will make sure you live a truly happy life." To my surprise, just a few days after I agreed to the landlord's proposal, Xiaowen told me she was leaving because the landlord wouldn't let her stay any longer. That day, when Xiaowen finished packing her things and stood at the door ready to leave, I felt a bit uneasy. There was no expression on her face, but I could see her disappointment and despair. Xiaowen, I'm really sorry. I walked up to her, my tone full of regret. Xiaowen glanced at me coldly and sighed. Actually, I anticipated today would come, but I still hope you can think it through. I felt a bit at a loss, only able to silently watch her. Xiaowen continued, I know better than you what kind of person the landlord is. He always speaks sweetly to me, but when he feels I'm no longer fresh or meets someone better, he will discard me without hesitation. I nervously asked, are you saying he would do the same to me? Xiaowen smiled bitterly, I'm not predicting your future, but from my experience, he is always like this. He just likes to toy with women, and when he's bored, he'll look for a new target. I couldn't accept this fact, feeling a mix of emotions. Then what will you do in the future? Xiaowen gently shook her head, don't worry about me. I will find my own way. I just hope you won't repeat my mistakes. After saying that, she turned and left, leaving me standing alone at the door. Maybe Xiaowen was wrong. Soon the landlord decided to have me quit my job at the clothing store to help him sell electric cars, so we could work hard together and get married soon. Every morning, while other girls were still asleep, I would wake up early and carefully dress myself. I chose the latest styles, meticulously matched jewelry and shoes, all to present the best version of myself. Makeup also became a part of my daily routine, from the most basic foundation to eye makeup and lip gloss. I poured great effort into every step. I hoped that whenever customers walked into the store, they would be dazzled by my presence and become more interested in the car models. The landlord came to the store every day to inspect. Whenever he saw me, his eyes were always filled with pride and satisfaction. He walked up to me and, in an almost boastful tone, said to the other employees, look, this is the standard I'm talking about. If every salesperson could be like her, our store's sales would definitely skyrocket. I knew well that this was not just about my appearance. It was more about the landlord wanting to achieve some ambition through me. But I didn't want to think too much about it. I just silently did my job well. Days passed, and I gradually got used to this kind of life. Every day, different customers walked into the store, and they were more or less attracted to me. Some of them don't really want to buy a car. They just want to chat with me and take a few photos. I respond with a smile, trying to leave a good impression on every customer. However, as time goes by, I gradually feel exhausted. The daily dressing up and smiling start to feel a bit mechanical. I know this is not the life I truly want, but for the landlord and for our future, I still strive to persevere. This calm and seemingly beautiful life was shattered by an incident. One day, a man around 50 came into the store. He was wearing an overly bright shirt, with rolls of fat overlapping on his belly, his tie crooked, and his face shiny with grease, which made me feel a bit uncomfortable. He walked into the store, eyeing me up and down with ill intentions, as if I had become a product in the store. He grinned, revealing yellowed teeth, and said to me, "Little sister, take me for a test drive." That lecherous gaze made me very uncomfortable, but for the sake of business, I still dutifully took him for a test drive. Sitting in the car, I could feel his fiery gaze on me from time to time. When we hit the road, his hand suddenly reached for my thigh. I nervously gripped the steering wheel, braked sharply, and coldly said to him, "Sir, please respect me. We are here to do serious business." He was clearly caught off guard by my sudden rejection, and an unhappy expression immediately appeared on his face. Girls like you should provide comprehensive services to customers, right? He provocatively said. I was very angry inside, but I still tried to respond calmly. I am a salesperson here, responsible for introducing and selling vehicles, not your plaything. If you continue with such inappropriate behavior, I will immediately terminate the test drive. His face turned even uglier, and he muttered a few words, ultimately completing the test drive with resentment. When we returned to the store, he left angrily, clearly not planning to buy a car. That evening when I got home, the landlord was sitting on the sofa, looking serious. Before I could take off my shoes, he started scolding me. What happened to that deal today? The customer left. Do you know how big that order was? I was already in a bad mood, and his reprimand made me even angrier. But I still tried to stay calm. That man had improper intentions, and I couldn't accept it. The landlord scoffed, looking at me. You can accept me. So what's the problem with that customer touching you? I looked at him angrily. What do you think I am? Just because of that little rent, do you think you can casually point fingers and humiliate me? He sneered, looking at me without hiding anything. You came to me for the rent, so why are you pretending to be so noble now? Hearing these words, my anger erupted completely. I thought you really had feelings for me, but now it seems you were just toying with me from the beginning. I am not your toy. The landlord did not respond, just looked at me coldly. In that moment, I realized that all the beauty between us was just an illusion, a facade. I quickly packed my things, tears streaming down uncontrollably. As I reached the door, I turned back and said with all my strength, goodbye. Then I slammed the door, not wanting to stay in that place that made me lose myself and my dignity for even a moment. That night when I left the landlord's house, I decided to give myself a complete indulgence. I opened my phone and casually selected a 5-star hotel in the city for booking. This decision was not rash. I thought, since I am in this bustling city, why not experience life here? I took a taxi and told the driver the hotel I wanted to go to. The car wove through the busy streets, with tall buildings and neon lights. Everything seemed so out of reach. I felt a bit dizzy but also excited. My heart raced, feeling an unprecedented sense of freedom. Upon arriving at the hotel, I chose a room with a window that overlooked the entire city. Lying on the lounge chair on the balcony, looking outside, the night in this city was completely different from what I had seen in the countryside before. It had a kind of enchanting beauty, but also an unfathomable loneliness. I turned off all the lights, letting the city's neon lights shine on me through the window, as if I had entered a dream. My phone vibrated in the silence of the night, and I casually picked it up to take a look, only to find it was not a message from the landlord. This made me even more certain that he had never had genuine feelings for me. To him, I was just a momentary novelty and interest. Thinking of this, my heart ached as if it were being cut by a knife. However, all of this no longer mattered. I knew the life I wanted was not like this. What I wanted was true love, the happiness of being with the right person. At this moment, I decided to start anew, to pursue the life I truly wanted. I want to make money, and I want those who look down on me to feel envy and jealousy. I know that although this city is glamorous, it also hides many unseen lives and people behind it. A year ago, I was still a naive country girl, full of longing for this city. But now, I have learned how to survive in this complex world. I got to know women from society, and we supported each other, becoming each other's reliance. We all have our own stories, but we chose the same way to survive. Every night, we wandered in high-end bars, nightclubs, and even private clubs, becoming the focus of pursuit for those wealthy men. Whenever the night was deep and quiet, my sisters and I gathered together, counting the money we earned from those disgusting men. To them, this money was just a drop in the bucket, but for us, it brought hope for life. Thus, I accumulated my wealth day by day until my savings reached 500,000. I began to consider my future. I knew I could no longer live like this. I needed a real home of my own, a place where I no longer had to worry about life. So, I decided to return to my hometown, where I had childhood memories, my family, and that clear lake. I used my savings to open a restaurant in my hometown, selling my favorite hometown dishes. My restaurant quickly became a local internet celebrity spot, with customers coming in and out every day. Here, I found my true self again. I am no longer the girl who was toyed with, but a successful businesswoman. Life gradually returned to calm until I met him, a down-to-earth and handsome man. We quickly fell in love, and his meticulous care made me feel the warmth of home. After we got married, we had our own little home. Although the scars of the past still linger in my heart, I know I have found my true belonging. I locked that past deep in my memories and will no longer touch it, because I know my future will be even better.